Welcome back. So, this is the second explainer in our five-part series that explains the Terestia Nation roleplays, mechanics, and rules. This explainer, unlike the previous one, which covered everything related to nations generally, how everything works, and the overarching mechanics in detail, will focus purely on the hard mechanics and strict rules for nations. We're officially taking the training wheels off, so buckle up because we're looking directly at the engine block today. Here is our agenda for today. First, foundations, tiers, and stats. Second, the economic engine. Third, tech, magic, and industry. Fourth, military and conflict mechanics. And finally, rules, balance, and GMs. Starting with Section 1, Foundations, Tiers, and Stats. Okay, so think of tiers as the size of your nation's actual house. It takes years to build an expansion. Stats, on the other hand, are like the weather outside. They change daily based on your policies. Your tiers, which are ranked from 1 down to 6, cover 10 distinct categories, like economy, agriculture, technology, and magic. Basically, they determine your absolute baselines. But your stats, things like stability, manpower, food security, approval, and magic, well, those are measured on a 0 to 100 scale and update every single in-game day based on what's actually happening on the ground right now. 5%. It looks like a tiny, almost insignificant number, right? But this single digit is actually Terestia's ultimate anti-blitz mechanic. It's literally the bridge between your grand vision and your day-to-day reality. We call this stat drift, and it's your safety net. But man, it's also your quicksand. If a major crisis suddenly drops your stability target from an 80 down to a 40, you don't just instantly collapse. You get a little bit of time to react. But if you mess up and ruin your targets, digging yourself out is this agonizing process of daily 5% increments. You definitely can't just hit a magical fix-it button. Moving right along to Section 2, the economic engine. Think of your economy like a literal vehicle. You could have this massive GDP engine, but if your treasury runs out of fuel, your dashboard is absolutely going to light up, warning you the whole system is stalling. So your GDP grows based on a yearly rate that's applied in daily increments. Meanwhile, your treasury is your spendable cash, fed by taxes and corporate contributions. And tying it all together is your economic health, a real-time composite score from 0 to 100 that tells you straight up if your nation is thriving or on the verge of total collapse. And if you mismanage that spending, the consequences are immediate and brutal. Hitting bankrupt status, which happens when your total reserves drop below 3% and your treasury drops below 1%, instantly triggers a death spiral. You are immediately hit with a negative 6% to your GDP growth, plus a massive negative 20 to your stability and approval targets. It's devastating. Now, I know we've all tried to just max out taxes in simulation games before, but you really have to beware the Laffer curve mechanic here. Pushing your taxes into the 70% punishing band doesn't actually make you rich. Instead, it causes massive capital flight, tax evasion, and completely wrecks your political stability. You'll suffer a 15% loss in collection efficiency while simultaneously tanking your approval rating. So yeah, you can't just endlessly squeeze your population to pay for your own mistakes. All right, on to Section 3, tech, magic, and industry. When you're building your nation, you face a pretty critical choice right off the bat: absolute power or supreme flexibility. A tech purist or a magic purist can reach the absolute pinnacle of their field, Tier 1. That unlocks devastating masterwork designs or even reality-bending Class 7 magic. But a hybrid nation splits its focus. It gains this immense versatility by blending both tech and magic, but mechanically, it's hard-capped. A hybrid nation can never reach Tier 1 in either category, so you're basically trading ultimate raw power for ultimate flexibility. For the industrialists out there, your corporate dominance is strictly tethered to reality. You can't just magically produce goods out of thin air. Sure, you can found a company, list it on the stock market, and even expand internationally. But if your supply chain breaks, let's say you don't have enough metals or energy, your resource factor drops to absolute 0, and your company produces literally nothing that month. Because resources aren't just handed to you on a silver platter. You actually have to spend time and money running expeditions. And the geography really matters here. A desert is going to yield very different materials than a tundra. And hey, if you don't find what your economy needs locally, you've got to hit the global market. That means spending your precious foreign reserves, establishing actual trade routes, and paying tariffs just to bridge the gap. Next up, Section 4, Military and Conflict Mechanics. Listen, there is no I attack button in Terestia. War requires meticulous logistics and deliberate mobilization. First off, you always need a solid in-character justification. Your armies require realistic time to actually mobilize, and if you push way too far without supply lines, your encircled units are going to weaken rapidly. Game masters resolve combat based on actual strategy, terrain, and logistics, not just on who types their roleplay post the fastest. And the exact same logic applies to proxy wars and uprisings. Rebellions do not just spawn full armies overnight. They have to start as underground whispers, focused on propaganda, eventually scale up to insurgencies, and only then do they become open revolts capable of seizing territory. You really have to put in the narrative work to make it happen over time. Finally, let's wrap up with Section 5, Rules, Balance, and GMs. To prevent stat gaming, the system employs some pretty aggressive anti-exploit mechanics. For instance, if you rapidly annex a bunch of territory without actually spending the time and resources to properly integrate the new population, you're going to get slammed with overextension penalties that will totally tank your stability. Drag a war out for years, war exhaustion will cripple your GDP growth. And crucially, pay close attention to the action commitment rule. Once you post an action, there is absolutely no undo button. You have to live with the consequences of your roleplay. The absolute golden rule of Terestia is actually quite simple. Every single decision you make must be grounded in logistical reality. Because I want to is never a sufficient justification on its own. If an action doesn't make logical, logistical sense within the simulation, it simply won't be allowed. Period. So finding some clever technical loophole in the rulebook, yeah, that won't save you. The game masters are the final arbiters of realism, and they hold retcon authority. If an action breaks the immersion or the fairness of the roleplay, it will be reversed. Logical plausibility always trumps literal interpretations, and anyone caught just spamming actions is going to face strictly enforced cooldowns. So, the hard math and the systemic guardrails are officially decoded. The engine is built, fueled, and waiting for you. The only question left is how you'll use it. Will you rule a hyper-specialized empire with an iron fist, or maybe build a flexible hybrid trading powerhouse? The mechanics are yours to command. So, what kind of nation will you build?